Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Five Drinks Through Midnight, the show where we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks, and we try to wrap up before midnight, because we all know drinking after midnight can't film it. Today we're talking to Maurice O'Connell, co-founder of Wayward Irish Spirits. They're the guys that make the Liberator. But before we do, go ahead, hit all the buttons, the likes, the bells, the dings, do it all. Really help us get that algorithm moving. Let's get started. Maurice, thank you so much for joining us. Five Drinks Through Midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions, midnight, whatever comes first. Thank you, sir, so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this. I love your whiskey very much. So,
thank you.
How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Actually, no, I've got a bit of a head cold, so I can't taste a lot. Oh. But so that'll be interesting. Anyway, we'll work with that.
Excellent. So I guess our first thing is, what are we drinking first?
I think probably where it started. I don't know. What have you got there? Have you got the malt and tawny port? You've got both of them.
I got both of them. I told you I'm a big fan. So whatever one you want to do.
Yeah, I don't actually have any of the inaugural release on me.
Oh,
but
right.
so let's start on batch 2. This is a vatted malt, and what we hadn't realized when we launched this was that actually there wasn't really a category of vatted malts. No, there hadn't been any vatted malts in Ireland for decades. Just seemed to me it's a perfectly obvious thing to do. If you get decent whiskies from 2 different distilleries, why not blend them and make something better? And I think that's what we've done here. So pour a little into the glass.
I'll do the same.
So it benefits actually from a bit of oxidation in the glass for a few minutes. Actually, we might pour the next one as well while we're at it. If you pour the cask strength version of the which is the storehouse special, the little bottle.
The little bottle.
Yeah, that's it. As I said, this is a vatted malt. I mean, and it's been quite difficult to explain to people what a vatted malt is, because most people just know what a single malt is and a blend. And a blended vatted malt is not sort of it wasn't very common. It's become a bit more common since we launched. And this is actually a vatting of 2 different whiskies. It's some 2015 malt, single malt from Great Northern Distillery, and that's about 78% of it, and 22% is 2006 single malt from Cooley. So, as I say, it's a vatted malt. To explain it to people, sometimes we tell them it's a double malt. So it's twice as good as the single malt.
There you go.
So it's quite difficult to get the concept across, because everyone thinks they only want a single malt. So you've got to try and get them to try something new. The younger whiskey has been with us here at our bonded storehouse for about 3 years, and the younger spirit was about 9 to 12 months in really fresh tawny port casks. And these casks were sourced in Portugal. I sourced them, and they were refilled in Ireland within 3 weeks of them being emptied in Portugal. Usually if casks can be sitting around for 6 to 9 months before they get refilled, and they dry out. And this is really fresh, and it's given it this fantastic color.
Yeah.
You might not see it so much in the glass, but in the bottle, it's just deadly. It's fantastic. There is actually a code of how far a colour in whiskey how far you can go with a colour in an Irish whiskey, and this is right up against the limits of what is acceptable, because the technical file says that that whiskey is brown in colour, and if you're coming towards red, they get a little agitated. But there's no colour added. There's no chill filtering. This is as it came out of the cask. So
that's amazing. Again, it's one of my favorites. So cheers to you, sir. This is just amazing.
Oh, you're going straight in. Not so on the nose. It's intensely fruity. This is batch 2. batch one was even fruitier. But the feedback we got was that it was, and we had to, on the inaugural release, we launched on 29th of February, just into COVID. It wasn't very clever, but there we are. Yeah. It had to make a statement, so it was very, very porty. And if you taste that, I mean, a couple of people said to me, "That's not whiskey, that's portsky," which wasn't entirely what we were looking for, but at least it made an impression. And this is much more balanced, and has had a few more months in the casks as well, so that's made it a bit mellower. So I get sort of cherries, and figs are a big word in our vocabulary here. So and there's a lot of citrus zest, and a bit of you can get pepper on the nose as well, and maybe cardamom. But once I get figs into my head, I can't get it out again. So
definitely get the figs, but yeah, the cherry as well is right there.
Well, we have in Ireland, we have a biscuit called a fig roll, and this is a fig roll in a glass to Irish people. So it's so that there's that maltiness from the barley that's still noticeable on it. And that combined with the fig makes it into a fig roll. But anyway, Sláinte, I'm going to have a sip.
Cheers. It's so good. It is so good. I really, really love it. It's so good.
Yeah. So what I get out of this is a bit of hazelnuts, and sort of roasted malt notes. Then obviously the sweetness, winey sweetness from the port. But blackberries and maybe dried kiwis I get in there. I don't know what you get.
I get a lot of the toasted malt is very nice, and the port is right there. I think that's why I really love it. I think with those two combinations right there, it's so delicious.
Well, I made the decision that if I was going to make whiskey, I'm very fond of port finishes. So if I was going to make whiskey, if I wasn't able to sell it, I might as well make stuff that I like to drink myself. So I have a storehouse full of port-influenced whiskies to keep me going for another few years.
It's just the question one. So
oh gosh, I thought that was question one.
No, we haven't. We're just tasting so far. We haven't even gotten into question one yet. But I mean, what? Again, your family has quite the history in Ireland, but also in the whiskey business. What made you want to get back into the whiskey business?
We wanted to do something that connected with the land that we have here, that we love, and we wanted to share our passion for the land. And we've been growing barley for animal feed here for decades, and it seemed to me like a terrible waste of barley. So we discovered that we could actually grow malting barley, and so we started to do that. And back in 2016, we had the idea of having a small distillery, just distilling the grain that we grow on the estate. But that wasn't really a viable business. It was the amount we can grow here is just too small. So alongside that, we decided that we found out that it was possible to resuscitate the whiskey bonding tradition in Ireland, where merchants used to everyone would receive their wines and their brandies and their ports in barrels, and when they finished those barrels, they wondered what to do with them. So they discovered that if they brought it to their local distillery and refilled it with whiskey or young spirit, magic happened. And and every town and every village would have had its own whiskey bonder, a pub or a merchant, and they would have their own sort of house style of whiskey. And it was in about 2016 with the start of the availability of wholesale whiskey in Ireland. It became a viable proposition to do that. And so we have this hybrid business. We call ourselves Whiskey Bonders Plus. So long, yeah, okay. Well, you have to do something to explain it to people. This is my big problem.
I got you. I'm following along. I love it. Keep going, please.
So, I mean, the whiskey bonding is a fantastic business because it allows me to buy spirit from lots of distilleries and build up a library of flavors which we can play with and make interesting things with. This was very different to the spirit that came to us, and that's what we have to do. We have to show that we're adding some value to it. And so what I'm doing now is, as I say, I'm building up a library of whiskey flavors. I'm buying young spirit from lots of distilleries in Ireland, and we mature them further. Then they come down here to our bonded storehouse to be finished, blended, and then bottled and hopefully sold. So everything apart from the distilling can happen on site.
That's amazing. And so again, you guys are growing your own grain
we do,
and then because in 5 years you're going to start distilling your own instead of going from bonding, you're going to go to distilling.
No, we will continue the bonding because we've bought so much spirit that we need to do that. Also, from a business perspective, I mean, we need to continue that because the distilling our own grain is just going to be too small a business. That is something which I think gives us an authenticity to our other activities. It's been very difficult to get even as far as we've got now, and it will get even more difficult by the time we start distilling. But it's really important to me because it's a connection with the land, and for Irish people, the land is hugely important, and it always has been. And it allows me to connect with my family history and connect with some really interesting characters in the past.
And then will that that new distilling, would that be part of the Liberator brand, or would that be
no? That's going to be a different name. It's the working title is Lakeview Estate Single Pot Still, and the way these things work, we'll probably end up with that name. It's just. Because we never get around to doing anything else, but we have a few ideas what else to call it. But no, it'll be definitely separate.
Okay.
And we're trying to keep it completely separate and not bring in and just be distilling our own grain. So it'll be a single product, which will be single estate grain to glass, and to be distilled in the field next to the distillery. Sorry, it'll be grown in the field next to the distillery.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're quite welcome to interrupt. It's a good idea sometimes to interrupt me. So we're on to our third. 2020 was our third crop of distilling of malting barley, and the first crop was in 2018, and that was distilled for us by Great Northern Distillery into pot still spirit. I mean, they've been fantastic because our first crop was 10 tons, and which is nothing, just basically, and they have silos which take 30 tons of grain. So they emptied 2 of these huge silos for 5 tons of my malted barley and 5 tons of unmalted, and yeah, they were very helpful and distilled to our mash bill, to our specification. So it's like having our own really competent distiller on hand, because they have been fantastic. And the first one was put into cask in March last year, and I'll show it to you. It's this is it. The color is fantastic, and really it tastes really good. This is often my tipple of a choice in the evening. It's only about 20 months old, and it's been matured in Neoc casks, which I'll come back to in a bit. And when we were at Whiskey Live in Dublin this time last year, and we didn't have anything to show. So I brought along some of this, what at the time was 8-month-old new make, and I cut it down to 46% and offered it to people, and really positive reception to it. And I think people are very taken with the idea of like Waterford are doing, just being able to see where your whiskey is growing. Yeah. So we showed it to people, tasted it to people there. And I remember one guy came up to me and said, "Yeah, it's very nice, but it's a bit rough for an 8-year-old." And I said, "It's only 8 months, so give it a chance." So I thought that was a good sign. This is the Storehouse Special. Basically, this is a first of a series of small releases of interesting whiskies that we find in our Bond and Storehouse. And this was a release of 156 bottles at cask strength. So basically, it's to keep the interest of the whiskey enthusiasts, and maybe to try out things that we're working on, that just to see whether they would work as a commercial product, because you don't really know until you're out there. So we're going to have a series of these small releases. So this is our blended whiskey, which is called the Liberator Small Batch. So it is the cask strength version of the whiskey you're going to have afterwards. This is as I say, it's a blended whiskey, but it's what we would call a premium blend, and in Scotland I think they call it a luxury blend. So it's got a very high malt whiskey content. It has 42% malt whiskey in it, compared to your average blend, which will be 5 to 15%. So I wanted to have to follow, although this is sourced whiskey, I'm sort of very. One of the things I really love about whiskey is being able to taste the land, being able to taste the malt barley in it, and so that was important to me to be able to have that aspect of it. So I say 42% malt whiskey, 58% grain, and this is the cask strength version, which is about 61.7%. So there's quite a punch in it. But do you want to have a nose of it? It's so again, lots of fruit. The makeup of this whiskey was the malt content was again 2015 Great Northern Distillery malt whiskey, which was finished for between 9 and 12 months in Tawny and Ruby port casks. And then there's a small amount of 2006 Cooley distillery malt in there. And on the grain side, all the grain was matured in bourbon, and about half of it was finished in Ruby port casks. So it was quite a complicated blend. I mean, the guy who helps us with the blending is a Scotch guy called John McDougall, and he came up with this blend, and it requires bits of about 20 different casks, 20 different cask types. So it's really complicated to put together. But taste it and see what you think of it. Slideshow.
Cheers. Ooh.
Do you like your cask strengths?
I do. I very much so. So
Yeah.
that's this is good. This is that citrus. You're getting a lot of citrus. Am I supposed to get citrus?
Yeah. You get what you get what you get. You get what you get, and you don't get upset, as we used to tell my son.
Okay.
So yeah, I get the citrus and raisins and blackcurrant and on the citrus I get mostly orange, but other people tell me they get lemons. I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely getting the oranges and raisins. Yeah. Definitely, those are.
And I don't know if you have a sweet called we have a boiled sweet in Ireland, which is called a pear drop. So there's a sort of fizzy part to it, and there's pears in there, and this is sort of quite sweet and peary to my taste, and quite a creamy mouthfeel. I love the description that one guy came up with, and he said it's like a big ripe red currant squeezing the life out of you with a woolly jumper. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was very, very evocative. And
that's amazing. That's a too tight sweater. That's amazing.
Know when you're launching these things whether anybody else will like what you like, and so you have to just hope for the best.
Question 2. So is it true that your family was in the import spirits business way back, throughout history? Like, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we started off in about 1450 in a place called Ballycarbery Castle, which is on the coast near here. And our business at that time was importing wines and brandies from Spain and Portugal. And that was a legal business in those days. But there was an English invasion, and Cromwell's troops sacked the castle, and so we moved up the coast to a place called Derrynarn, and Derrynarn is a natural harbour hidden from the sea, surrounded by mountains, and it's everyone there is an O'Connell, so it's an O'Connell kingdom. The revenue men couldn't get in, which was useful because in 1661 the English Parliament brought in excise duty. So what had been a legitimate business suddenly became taxable. And it's not the Irish way, and it's certainly not the O'Connell way, to give up your livelihood just because somebody far away has brought in some new taxes. So began a couple of hundred years of smuggling. And the revenue men really couldn't get a look in because of the geographical setting, but also because a lot of the customers were the gentry of Kerry, the judges and the magistrates, and they didn't want to have their supply chain interrupted. So it built up into quite a big business under a guy called another Maurice O'Connell, an ancestor of mine, who went by the name of Hunting Cap O'Connell, because they the English brought in a tax on gentlemen's hats. And being a Kerryman, being an O'Connell, he stuck 2 fingers up at the establishment and started wearing a hunting cap. So he's known as Hunting Cap, and we will be bringing out a whiskey in his honour at some stage. But he built up a fleet of about 7 or 8 ships going to and fro from the continent, importing luxury goods, importing wines, importing brandies and ports from the continent, and silks. And the trade in the other direction was there was salt, which was a product, and butter and animal skins. But sadly, there was a lot of young men who, because they were Catholic and because of the laws at that time, they weren't allowed to be either educated in Ireland. They weren't allowed to learn. They weren't allowed to join any of the professions. They weren't allowed to get any rank in the army. So they would go across on hunting cat's boats to the continent to make their fortune, and this is why the Irish have got so far around the world. It's thanks to that period, and we found that by getting off the island, we were able to achieve things elsewhere. And from our family perspective, it was quite useful because the hunting cap would have been trading with cousins in Bordeaux, and we have some of the Bordeaux chateaux, such as Léoville-Barton and Chateau McCarthy, are sort of cousins of ours, and he would have been trading with them. And what we want to do, and in Portugal he would trade as well, and what we want to do with our Liberator range of finished whiskies is that we want to finish them in casks that have a connection with the family history. And our first releases were all have a sort of very, as you can see, very powerful port influence, and this sort of reflects my wife has family in the north of Portugal, and all the families, neighbours there are the port wine families. You're pouring another. Well done.
Yeah, just a little.
Is that one? That's 1.5 drinks to midnight.
Yeah, just a little bit. But again, please continue, because I love this story, and hearing it from you just makes it even better. And I can't wait to ask my question now because of this. But please continue.
Okay. My family are surrounded by all the port wine families, and it was and because we go over there quite a lot, we've got a lot of friends in the port business, and my wife insisted, as wives do, that she couldn't be bothered to learn Portuguese, so I had to learn Portuguese. So that actually turned out to be quite useful. So I negotiated for my casks in my fairly basic Portuguese. So it is actually quite a miracle that they turned out as well as they did. But it was actually those contacts in the port wine industry that led us to finding some really good casks. I feel that that's really important, and we want to do casks that connect with our history.
With question 2, getting into it.
Sorry, we've done question 2.
No, we just got into a little bit of the history. We haven't even really got into the full question yet. But it was I love that your family said, fuck England, and we're just going to go ahead and become smugglers. If that was still true today, what would your smuggler nickname be, like your great-grandfather, Hunting Cap? What would your smuggler name be?
I have to be careful on this, because when we started the business, we had to get approval from the local revenue, and our case officer was an amateur historian, and he was sort of tickled pink that we were actually now asking for permission. In my family there are a lot of Maurice O'Connells. It's a common family name, so we all have a sort of secondary name, and I'm not quite sure. My secondary name, as far as I know it, is Maurice Lakeview O'Connell, but I suspect there might be other names as well. And we have a big Morris, we have a Professor Morris, we have a Morris Willie. There's lots of different Morrises. I don't know. Madcap O'Connell, I don't know. The Storehouse O'Connell, maybe.
I liked Lakeview. I thought Lakeview was actually a really
nice... it's...
Should we move on to drink 3?
Yeah. Yep. We're going to move on to the cut down version of the one we've just been on, the grey label, which is the Liberator small batch. So if you've still got some in of the cask strength, it's quite interesting to compare what the difference between two, because there is a striking difference between the two. Because I think some of the things that get overpowered in the cask strength version are more obvious in the bottling strength version.
All right. Be a fun compare.
This is the same whiskey that you've been drinking, but cut to 46%. So a lot of the same nose, and but it's to my mind it's a lot lighter and a lot more elegant. And it was designed to be at 46%, but actually the cask strength was a bit of an aberration, which happens to have worked very well. But
that's really nice. I mean, it feels like the citrus is a little bit more refined. Like it's almost like a baked cake versus just raw citrus.
Yeah. And there's more port in the nose on this. I don't know why that should be, because it's all the same whiskey, but the port is more obvious on the nose than this. And red apples, skins, and strawberry. Do you get the strawberry? I get peppered strawberries.
The red apple. I definitely, now that you say that, I definitely get that. That it is.
And a bit of dark chocolate. God, you're going on to the palate very quickly. I hadn't finished on the nose yet.
It's just too good. I mean, I'll come back to it, but I have to taste it. It's just too good. You'll come to find out I'm a terrible barman. I'm slow and I have a heavy hand, and two, I don't like to wait. So like it's just like especially with something that I like this is so, again,
it's really Moorish. It really goes down really easily.
Yeah,
and it's compared to the malt and tawny port. It is a much lighter, much more elegant, much more summery drink, because the malt and tawny port was quite heavy, quite Christmassy. Though I have to stop using that phrase because I want people to be buying it all year round, not just at Christmas. But somebody called this Christmas in a glass the other day, which I thought was rather nice.
It's just something that like you want to sit by a fire and like have it snow on you like that. Like you want to be outside during the first snow of winter and just like sit there and just sip this and watch the snow come down like up against the fire. Like that's.
Well, you keep buying and we'll keep making is, I think, the contract on that.
Done. No problem. All right. So question 3 then. With Irish whiskey on a bit of a renaissance resurgence, if you will, what's next for you guys? And then also, what do you think is next for Irish whiskey in general?
I think pot still is making its mark in we were a bit nervous starting making pot still because the world doesn't know what pot still is. The world just knows single malt, but people are getting to know what pot still is now, and I think that that will come to define a style of Irish whiskey that, like single malt, is associated with Scotland, unfortunately. But I think it's something that we can claim as our own, and that we can run with and make interesting whiskies with.
Agreed.
As for us, we're carrying on with we've got quite a lot of in the storehouse. We've got a lot of port influence stock. But we've also got casks connecting with other parts of the history, such as part of the family went to Barbados to start a chain of stores, and so I'm very keen on connecting with that side of my history as well. So we've got some rum casks from there. We're connecting with the French side as well. Our pot still is. This stuff is in Neoc casks, which are French red wine casks, from Bordeaux, first growth chateau. I'd love to be able to tell you which chateau it is, but they don't want me riding on their coattails, understandably. But
Sure,
a really fantastic chateau, and basically these are like they're shaved and retoasted casks, but unlike most STR casks, which are where they get rid of the char on the inside using a chain flail around the inside of the cask, which damages the grain of the cask. What they do with these is that they take the cask to pieces and shave each individual stave to get rid of the old charring, and then they retoast it. So you're getting a lot of you're getting some of the red wine influence, and you're also getting a bit of new wood influence as well. And we've been having fantastic results with these casks, and that was a connection with our Bordeaux side, and we're connecting with the Spanish side as well. And we've, although we're part of the family married into the Larios gin family, though that ended badly as we had a falling out over a legal case that lasted for 40 years over an inheritance. So I'm not going to be able to get any casks from them, I suspect, but we will reconnect with the Spanish side of the family. We got some sherry casks, and we've got some PX sherry. We got some malt whiskey maturing in PX sherry casks. So a few different things, but we're not trying casks. We're not trying odd casks just for the sake of it. We're trying to do things that which have some resonance for us as a family.
That's amazing. I mean, they all, like, the rum cask seems like that sounds amazing, because I can't wait to even have a taste of what that tastes like, because that's got to be amazing. And then that all the other just finishes just sound amazing. Yeah. So that I can't wait. But
I mean, it's a long-term business. There's no get rich quick in whiskey. There's get poor quick.
Yeah.
But that sort of fits with the sort of family ethos. We've been here for generations. This is a business for future generations.
Well, all right. Well, then on to our question 4. What's our next drink?
I thought we might try this, which has been a favourite of mine for a number of years. Well, on the port, it's just the port finishes. I've always loved port finishes from, and I think what I started on, what made me really keen on port finishes was Glenmorangie brought out was a Quinta Ruban port finish a few years ago, which was spectacular, and I thought that this was my go-to for a long time, and I love their Madeira and sherry and finishes. I really like that fruity aspect of it, and I found the same in this Bushmills steamship port cask.
Very nice.
So excellent. I'm going to have a bit of that. Yeah. So this was my next dram, which was a port finish Bushmills. I think this one. I don't know how old this one is. It's I'm not sure of the age of it, but I mean, it's a real quality whiskey, which we try and emulate, and Sláinte.
Cheers.
And the other ones that I found that Glenmorangie brought out a Tawny port finish a few years ago, which also really caught my imagination. And then I sort of started on the green spots with the Léoville Barton and the Montelena and the Lustau, and just all the fruity ones.
Yep.
and then I sort of went on to Redbreast, and that sort of ended in the Redbreast 27, the port finish there. Unfortunately, I can't drink that very often, but if somebody offers me a glass.
That is gorgeous. Like that,
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked that hasn't hit like the best whiskey of the year for a lot.
Has it not? It should have, because that launched at the same time as the Liberator.
Yep.
And on a lot of assessments, they had the Liberator at €65,
yep.
Which got 90 points, and then the Redbreast 27 at €490, which got 97 points. So we couldn't really give us 96. So, but it was tough competition to be up against, but.
I guess on question 4, we kind of talked a little bit about it already, but if the Liberator wasn't born, what would your go-to drink be?
Probably this Bushmills port cask. I really do love port finishes. It would be something like that, something fruity. And I don't drink a lot. I just like the occasional sip of it. If you're in the whiskey business, you have to sort of be a little careful of loving your product too much, because there's a slippery slope there, and I want to avoid getting down that. And I want to keep enjoying what I'm tasting, rather than sort of get inured to it.
All right. Well, that's question 4. That was easy. That was probably the easiest question we had. All right. On to our last and final question. Like 9:30 your time, so we're still good for multiple drinks. So,
gosh, has it been that long already? Gosh, okay, that was very easy.
See,
so far,
time flies. It's just 2 friends drinking at the pub. It's just a good thing that you're home, so you don't get in trouble for being out so late. So it's just. Let's go ahead. We'll jump into our 5th and final question.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
What's our last drink of the night?
I thought that I just wanted to. You were asking what we were planning next, and this is Glenmorangie. It's a 10-year-old malt, but there's a tiny hint of peat in it, and I really like the way that peat brings out some of the other flavors in a whiskey. So that sort of inspired me. We're playing around now with we have some peated malt in the storehouse, which we're going to blend in very small quantities into some of our future blends and see where that takes us. Because I really like I don't like heavily peated whiskies. It doesn't really do anything for me personally.
Right there with you. So yeah.
But just the tiniest bit of it just transforms it. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to have.
So I have mine, and
all right, okay, great.
And pour a little.
It's another fruity one that I like my fruity whiskies. It's becoming a bit of a common theme. But there's I don't get any peat on the nose.
No, me neither.
But it is very slight on the palate, I think.
Oh, just a little bit, yeah. But that's nice, though.
Yeah. Oh, and I tried one of those the other evening, and I don't remember which one it was. It was an old Glenmorangie, but it was, I think they were saying it was 2 parts per million of peat, so really tiny proportion. And this is a very, very, very slight port peat, but you can feel that it brings out the fruitiness of the rest of it.
You don't get the peat till the very end. Like it hits you after. Like, yeah, it's not a big. Yeah, it's not a big heavy peat at all. Like
no, actually, it's quite good because it overpowers the youth of a whiskey.
Yep.
But I find that just a really tiny addition to a blend makes a big difference and intensifies some of the fruit flavors.
Well, and again, I appreciate, one of the reasons why I love doing this show is just because you just introduced me into a whiskey that I probably would have steered far, far away from because of my taste and scaredness of what I like and don't like. But
oh no, I've turned you on to Scotch.
I know. You did.
Yeah. I'm going to be killed by the Irish Whiskey Association.
So our question 5, it's a simple flip of the coin question. The coin will tell us the answer. You can spin it, you can flip it, you can do whatever you want. The coin just tells us the answer. It's a silly question to end the night. It has nothing to do with anything. But question 5, in a true campaigner fashion, is it true that every bottle of Liberator has a secret meaning hidden in the label? Fuck yeah.
Yeah. You have to find it though.
Yes, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us. 5 drinks down, not even close to midnight. 5 questions answered. I want to say thank you again. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. It's really a real pleasure I was a bit nervous coming on, but it made it a lovely evening.
And again, it's just all about love and respect, and I want the world to know about the Liberator. So again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man, and again, thank you so much.